yes to that. But is there something that you've done before that you wouldn't do again?
My biggest thing I would give anyone advice to is, as I was growing, my ego was I wanted to be this man so bad. Instead of getting in the room with the right people that could help me, I thought I was better than them. And when I lost that about 5-6 years ago, and I started going to conferences and learning and networked, like I was a millionaire, but I've gained almost 90% of my wealth in the last 5 years. Welcome to the Roofing CEO Playbook podcast. Build it to sell it. We're here to cut through the noise, all the rhetoric, to show you how to build your roofing business, make it profitable, where you make a boat ton of money, and the cherry on top, when you're ready to sell, you can sell to a private equity firm and change your family's life. Hey everybody, I'm here with Ellen Rohr. I'm sure if you're in the trades, you know who she is. She's now currently at ServiceTitan being the ambassador, but you have a hell of a resume from writing books to starting Zoom from scratch and selling that. You used to be the president, I believe, of Benjamin Franklin, correct?
Employee number one.
Employee number one, and built that. And she's a woman, if you haven't told. If you haven't seen it, she's a woman in the trades and probably the most decorated woman in the trades probably so far ever that we know of.
Well, it's because I've lived a long time.
You lived a long
time. You know, I've been around a while, so you get to add a few things to your CV.
We're gonna talk a lot about home services today, growing businesses. It's comical that you're sitting in my studio. It's sponsored by ServiceTitan.
How about that?
Great people, and you know I believe in the product. We're gonna talk about your ambassador program and much, much more today. So tell everybody who you are, Ellen, real fast, and you got a hell of a resume. So,
well, and I started because I married a plumber. That's how I got into the trades. Growing up, my family called people. My dad wasn't handy, so I really didn't know anything about this. But then I met my husband, Hot Rod. That was his name, so I married him, Lance. And he's a plumber, and that's how I got turned on to the trades and the cool things that they do. And he's the kind of guy that when there's a problem, you call him. He's really capable. He knows how to fix things. And I found that incredibly attractive. And so he and I, worked together when we were first married. His first partner died, age 33, worked himself into a health crisis, and died one weekend.
Really?
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And I usually bring that up because it's not worth that. Like, that was the big message to me, is like the last words. His partner, Yox, was the kid's name. The last words he said to me is, if I don't do it myself, it'll never get done. And he died. And it got done. It just, life goes on. We were talking about this earlier.
I truly believe that.
Life goes on. And so, but we missed him. And that was kind of a perspective shifting moment for him. But that's the point where I said to my husband, let me quit my real job. I've had about 1 million jobs, but I was actually a restaurant manager. We have a lot in common. Love the restaurant world. And it's colored me in a lot of good ways. But I quit my job. I came to work with my husband, and I thought we'd get rich, and all we did was fight. It was really awful. But then I'm a Frank Blau eaglet. Do you know Frank? Did you ever meet Frank?
I don't, but I know him through you. And you have another mentor, too.
Al Levy?
Yes.
Al Levy, yes. And Frank
and
was...
George Brazil is another one, correct?
Well, George Brazil, this is going back, this is, I got a long story. So George Brazil in Southern California, Arizona, and Frank Blau up in Milwaukee, they both kind of evolved at the same time with flat rate in the industry. Now, Frank still's like 97 years old, 98. He's a union plumber. George Brazil, commission-based contractor in, the California area, different constructs, but they both were developing flat rate, which back in the day did not exist. So in my lifetime, we moved to flat rate about 35 or so years ago, and it was a big deal, a big movement. And Frank and George were best buddies, and they really founded Contractors 2000, which became Nexstar. So I went to the first meeting of Nexstar. Yeah, it was called Contractors 2000 then.
And you're still part of Nexstar or no?
No, because once I moved in...
How are you not on the board at Nexstar? That's what...
Yes, Julian. Well, what happened is,
I'm friends with Jordan. I love him, but I'm like thinking to myself, wow, like you hit every check mark and then some.
Here's what happened there, as I love, and there's a guy, I don't know if you know Jack Tester.
I know Jack Tester very well.
Jack Tester, he was the executive director at the get-go. We joined as members once we sold our company. And the reason we sold our company is, one, because we turned it around with Frank Blau's help. Like, Frank taught me how to read and use financial reports, just like we were talking earlier today. Asset from my elbow, assets, liabilities, equity, sales, expenses, profit. Like, he taught me that, and it changed everything for us. We raised our prices, premium priced contracting.
We just talked about this for an hour in there.
Just like, this is my life story. And so once I learned that, it was like being born again for me. Like, it was like, how did I not know this? I'm going to preach it, that I started writing for magazines. That's when I wrote the books, and I started to figure this out in our own company. But it's important to note that Hot Rod and I didn't work well together.
Hot Rod's her husband.
Hot Rod's my husband.
Tattooed on her ankle.
Yeah, he's on my ankle. And so's the Zoom logo. My true loves. So, but it's important to note that it was his company. And another tenet I've learned over my life is there's room for one at the top in any company, and it was his company. It wasn't my company.
You know what's funny you say that? You want to hear a saying I say to every one of my partners?
Let's hear it.
There's only one chief in every village for a reason, and I'm the chief.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then don't come to my village. And that's not being rude.
No, even if you're 50-50 ownership, somebody has to be the chief. I 100% agree with that.
And that doesn't mean I'm a control freak. I always say chiefs lead by wisdom, by talking, communicating. The majority of them, right?
Sometimes you're just the one taking the bullets.
And sometimes you just got to put your foot down. Someone has to make a decision, and you live or die by what that chief decides.
Yeah.
And you can only have one, because not everything can be debated. And people are like, and some people said to me, well, I can't live with that. I want to have a say. And I'm like, well, then this isn't the place for you.
Or you can have a say, and you can make a dissenting argument. However, at some point, and you don't want to play that card too often. You don't want to be the chief always making every decision. However,
I don't have to.
Right. So there's this delicious balance there. But what happened is we turned our company around. We went from deep in debt to starting to stockpile money, and it took a year. It happened fast. But at that point, money buys options. The year before, we had no options. Now we had some options. I'm going to get kind of misty talking about it.
No, that's good, though. I mean, people need to hear this.
Look, I got my bracelets all tied up.
I mean, you are literally legit probably the most decorated woman in the trades by far. So, I mean, people need to hear it wasn't just... I know you did. I think people sometimes look at you because you have... I told you, my sister Janine, beautiful personality, beautiful, nice heart. But you're just a good human being, right?
Yeah.
You don't find many of these anymore these days. I just don't.
I do. So it might be in our perspective.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
I don't meet many Ellen Rohrs and Janine Morgans these days, but that's okay. But I will tell you this. I think people think you were born with a silver spoon and you've been handed everything, and that's not the story. I don't think most people understand
Well,
that.
interestingly, I grew up as a wealthy kid. Like I talked to you, we went to summers in the shores and everything. But then my family fortune went away. It's a story for another day, and it turned way upside down. So I think I wouldn't be the person I was if that hadn't happened. But what that did for me, just growing up and realizing that the fortune I thought the family had that was no longer, really caused me to go, I'm going to pay attention to the money. And so all of this was happening about the same time we're figuring out our company. But there isn't a day that goes by that I don't check all my money.
I tell people that all the time.
I look every day at my money, and it doesn't take long.
Takes 5 minutes.
Again, goosebump moments. But it just, once you take that kind of stewardship, that kind of responsibility, I'm going to know where my money is. And it really comes down to what happened to my family and then what happened in the family business. But once we had money, Lance, that one person at the top gets to decide, and it was his business. Now, my husband is a technician. He's a genius when it comes to mechanical things, but he has no interest in growing an empire. So at the time when I'm starting to think, well, this is what we can do with 4 trucks. What could we do with 8 trucks? And I'm starting to get the fever for it. He's going, I want to work all by myself. I don't like any of this. And it was hard. Like now I see it as like, oh, thank God we got to this point. You know, I was telling Bill, we went through marriage counseling, we figured it out, but we decided we just didn't want the same things. And so another lesson, and I relapse from this. I'm not perfect on it, but what I've learned is you can't change anybody. And the only person I can really work on is me, and there's plenty to do. There's an expression, I learned it from an AA friend, that there's plenty to do in your own hula hoop. Mm-hmm. And once you change, everything around you changes. The work is never about trying to get someone else to do something different, which can be tricky if you're a service manager, an owner, trying to get people to do, can't change your customers, your team, your wife, your kid. You can't do that. But once you change, everything changes for you, and that's what I found. So in any event, we decided to not work together, and Hot Rod has bought and sold his own businesses. My husband is like the most self-actualized guy I know. Does what he wants to do every day of his life. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
But we didn't have the same dreams because I've got this itch to scratch. I want to see can I grow a bigger business? How am I going to do that? So another thing I've learned is I put out into the world an intention. I wanted to see if I could grow a big company, if I had it in me, if I had the chops to do it. I really had an itch to scratch about it, but I didn't know how I was going to do it because my earlier plan was trying to get my husband to do it and he didn't want to. So I thought, may this or something better come to pass. I put the idea out there and I start walking in that direction with knowing that something from the left or the right is going to find me. And that has been my journey. That makes me cry. But like something will come up. If this is what I want and I plod in that direction, something from the left or the right is going to find its way to me, that we will magnetize what we need. And that has been my experience. So I'm thinking this. Now I'm writing for the magazines. That's what we used to do instead of podcasting. Write for the magazines. I wrote for 25 years. I wrote for the trade magazines, a bunch of them. And I'd write and then I'd go visit shops like you do, like we all do. I'd go, if there was a cool company. And back in the day, a $5 million yearly take was an iconic company.
No doubt.
It was like you would travel the country. How do they do that, you know? But that's how I kind of got my way around it. But then I was doing a seminar one day, and in the audience is Jim Abrams, and I'm, preaching about your balance sheet, your profit and loss, cash flow, just a couple of statistics, just stuff that really changed my life. And he came up to me after and he said, how would you like to grow the country's largest home service plumbing company? Now, the only company I'd even been part of was the one we ran out of our garage with 4 trucks. And I said, yes. So another takeaway is...
And that's Ben Franklin, right?
I was Ben Franklin. So another takeaway is just say yes to that say yes to that which is aligned with what you want. And it was aligned with what I had no business saying yes.
Do you think people overcomplicate shit?
Oh, yeah. And I think
I'm just curious because I interviewed a guy today who called me for a job. I offered a job, gave him one. He's like, can I think about... I said, think about what? You called me. You drove here. Like I just remember, like, what are you thinking about? He's like, you're right. I'm like...
Did he say yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I'm like... I think he knew I was going to say, that's it. I don't understand, like, why we overcomplicate shit.
Well, so don't people ask you this question? What do you know now that if you could go back, you would have done differently? So tell me some advice so I could avoid a mistake. I'm sure you get asked that question.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's where I am with that. Now, I'm interested in your answer. But here's where I am with that. If I save you from making that mistake, you're going to make another one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So making the decision and then making the decision right is how I've heard this said. And that's so important. Like if it comes down, my partner Jim Cronetti says this, if it comes down to 2 really good decisions and you are stuck, either's fine.
No doubt.
Just go, and then there'll be some mitigating thing you have to do here. And there's something you avoided here that you didn't even know about. Like you just don't know until you get in there. See, that's what we're saying is so wise that you're just vibrating.
Well, I thought it was on silent. No.
So yes to that. But is there something that you've done before that you wouldn't do again?
My biggest thing I would give anyone advice to, and my biggest regret in business is when probably over the last 17 years and I've been in business, one of my biggest regrets is as I was growing, my ego was I wanted to be this man so bad. Instead of getting in the room with the right people that could help me, I thought I was better than them. And when I lost that about 5-6 years ago, and I started going to conferences and learning and networked, like I was a millionaire, but I've gained almost 90% of my wealth in the last 5 years. That's how crazy this is. I'm 50 years old. I've gained probably 90% of my true family wealth now in the last 5 years.
And you're
Think
just
about
getting
that.
started.
I am. But just think about that, though.
Yeah.
Now, I was a multimillionaire prior.
What was the, was there a ruining moment in there that caused you to go, wait a minute?
I think my ego was so big because I was the wealthiest kid from my neighborhood. I was the wealthiest guy in my family. So I looked at it as I made it instead of saying, how far can I take this and how many lives can I change, which is what I'm doing now. How far can I take this? How many lives can I change without sacrificing time with my children?
Was there a time? Was there a moment where you got like bit that made you like go? I'm not going to get bigger with this mindset. I got to go learn from somebody else.
I hate to say this. The day I met Travis Riggy changed my life. If you know who he is.
I know the name. Why do I know it?
So he's friends with Tommy Mello.
Okay.
Tommy Mello asked me to be the keynote speaker because of my life story at I forget the name of the event. It was not Home Freedom. It was the one. Garage Freedom or whatever it was called, the vertical track.
Yeah. Okay. Vertical track.
He asked me to be the keynote, which I was honored.
Yeah.
And Tommy's a good guy. He's a really good guy, very good friend of mine. And Tommy was staying at my house, and so I speak. And this is why I go to every conference now. It's why I go to play, not everyone, but I go where I can without seeing my children. Yes. Yeah. I believe, and I tell people, if you got to buy a ticket to a conference, pay for it. Trust me, it'll change your life. Go to a conference and meet people. It's the room you're in. Yeah. And Travis Riggy was up on stage talking about his HVAC company. He sold for, I don't know, I'm just going to assume between 30 and 40 million. I know it's somewhere around there. And I was like, my company's almost that size. And I was like, I own this HVAC company. I was like, and I listened to Travis speak. I immediately went after that conference. I thought Travis was going to be a jerk. Travis is a good-looking dude, built, great shape, was like the nicest guy. Everything I perceived about this man, right, was wrong. And he spent 2 hours sitting at the bar just talking to me about the process, what he did, the mistakes he made. Like, genuine from his heart. He wanted to. This is a man I never met before.
Yeah.
And it just changed my life. And I was like, you know what? Your arrogance, you were so rude, Lance. You always had to be the big shot in the room. And I just have come to saying, it's okay if I'm not. Just know the pecking order. It's okay. And just change. That'd be the one thing I would have changed 20 years ago. I truly believe I'd be a billionaire today.
Well, you've got plenty of time. And I love that story so much. And that's been my experience too, is that when I would ask someone, I got met so often with such generous information. And I think what happens is somebody helped that guy too. Somebody told Travis what he knew.
Absolutely.
And so then you're honor bound to share. That's why we're here today. That's why we do podcasts and talk to people and go to the conferences and visit each other's shop and all of that. Because you learn, of course, but then you're also, I feel responsible. I know Bill does. Like, that's what I love about Bill Rosell too, is he's honor bound to help when he can. And,
Absolutely.
And that's what I found in our community.
Let's go here.
Okay.
So you take Ben Franklin, you grow that. And,
yeah, that was kind of interesting too.
And
because
PE bought that, correct?
Yeah. So what happened is I learned a lot from Jim Abrams. He's a tough guy to work with. I don't know if you know him.
I don't know him, but
yeah, he's a tough cookie. But I learned a lot. It was like getting a PhD in business. It was brutal. I cried a lot. I got beat up. But I learned a lot. And a few things that Jim Abrams said, I think of every single day. And one of the things he taught me was, he said, we're going to sell this one day. He started this business with his best friend, John Young. They'd already gone public with service experts, and there was a really exciting ride. And I was watching all this when it happened, so I knew who he was. And so when he said, do you want to work with me? I thought, there's part of this I'm going to get my ass kicked, but another part I'm going to learn a lot. And so he and John Young started it, even though there were tens and tens, maybe hundreds of millions even then. They each put in $2,000, a $4,000 initial investment. in what would become Plumbing Success International and ultimately Contractor Success Group. And then the brands, Ben Franklin, Mr. Sparky, 1 Hour Air Conditioning. It started with $4,000, and they wrote a direct mail letter, and they sent it to previous guys who they'd worked with at Service Experts and rolled up and made money for, and said, we're coming to a meeting, and bring your checkbook. They get these guys in a room. It was $20,000 to join. Now they had $400,000 from a 4,000. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
For them, the game was always bootstrap. Like, how do we make something from nothing? Even they could have put millions in to start. So then they start Plumber Success International. Why plumbing? Because they had a non-compete with HVAC from the Service Experts deal. So they set up this affinity group, and from the affinity group, they're going to do a franchise. And then they did it. They were going to do roofing right before they sold. Roofers Success International was the next one on their list. So anyway, when I come on, I'm employee number 1 at Benjamin Franklin, which is super cool because welcome to Authority Brands. Authority Brands is now a ServiceTitan customer.
Absolutely.
All these brands.
Full circle.
Full circle. I mean, 22 years later. So exciting. But when I started, first off, he said, okay, how much money is it going to take you to break even? And I'm like, I don't know. So I got a columnar pad, calculator, $1 million I come up with. Really, it was the best I could do.
You pulled that out of your ass.
No, there was some math behind it, but it ended up being like $1 million. So yeah, half and half. And he goes, okay, but you're going to have to beg for everything you need that has a comma in it. If it's more than $1,000, you're going to have to justify it. I'm not writing you a check for $1 million. So again, he just kind of taught me about this bootstrapping construct. Everything has to result. There's just that is our game. We could put money at it, but we don't do it here. That's not the way we play. Another thing he taught me, he said, we're going to sell this thing. They wanted to go public again. We're going to sell this thing for $100 million in 10 years. And it's going to have 12 things fatally wrong with it. So don't sweat the small stuff. Like, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be 12, it's still going to be worth $100 million. But there's going to be 12 things wrong with it. And so things like that he taught me. Another thing he taught me is the simpler you make everything, the further you can take it. This is part of my obsession with dashboard reports. Just one page? Can we do one page? Like, how simple can we make it? I would say in my career, fighting fancy, getting rid of stuff that doesn't matter is probably job 1.
Here's a question for you. You're at ServiceTitan now.
Yeah.
You're part of the ambassador program.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let me go back to this one.
Okay.
Then you leave Benjamin Franklin. You guys sell, and you go to Zoom, and you sell.
Yeah, they sell. They don't go public. But again, I would never bet against Jim Abrams. Just saying, because over, under, around, and through, they found direct energy.
Correct.
They got private equity. Then it went to Authority.
But now you're going to start Zoom.
Now we're going to start Zoom.
You and Jim.
Yeah, Jim and Al Levy.
Mm-hmm. And you guys grow that.
Yeah.
To about 40 million.
Yeah, we're about 55 now.
But you sold at 40, correct?
We sold at like 30.
30.
I can't remember now. We had 15 franchisees, and now we have 53. But most of the new ones are emerging.
Emerging.
Yeah.
Nice exit there. You clearly don't have to work. You're at ServiceTitan now.
Yeah.
You're an ambassador. You have all the success.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love Aura, Vahe, Tom Howard. I'm partners with, as you know.
Yep.
All great people. What makes you still do this, and why ServiceTitan, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, no,
I'm
not
not saying
at all.
that question in a negative way, but...
It was like, it is just, again, may this or something better come to pass for me. So what happens is we're growing Zoom. COVID was really good for us. It was good for business. We were making a lot of money. But it wasn't good for selling franchises because I used to fly and go meet people, and now I'm just home watching Tiger King. And
what?
Tiger King, did you watch that during the... Oh.
What's it called?
Wasn't it Tiger King? Did you guys watch it?
You guys watch Tiger King?
Yes.
Am I the
Okay.
only one that watched Tiger King?
Do not watch it. There's no redeeming factors, but I watched it.
It's about tigers?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the knuckleheads who keep them.
Okay.
So yeah, it was kind of a thing. Like, we were all home. Like, what's on TV? So 2 things happened in COVID for me that were really important. One, I found our investors, and I love them. I found them through Connor Thielman, because he's just so well connected. So I knew a guy who knew a guy, and the whole bit. And I love our investors, which not everybody can say. And then, so we found investors because I knew we wanted to grow, and I wanted more financial foundation. And so we then signed on with a franchise sales organization, which is also risky. There's pros and cons to doing that as far as finding people who are going to be good franchisees to grow your company. So those two things are really what gave us a big jump.
Hockey stick.
Yeah. And then, we have investors and we want to make money. Like I'm still a founder and significantly invested in Zoom Drain.
You're on the board too, correct?
I'm on the board.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just there this morning. So yeah, it was fun.
With Bill.
With Bill. Yeah, showed Bill around, gave a couple of card contacts, phone contacts with them, which makes me happy. They're good people there, and I'm really excited to connect them. So what happened at this point, too, is my kid moved to Utah, had a baby, grandmother magnetism. I want to be with my family. So I moved back to Utah with my husband, Hot Rod, and the rest of the company is in Philadelphia, and Zoom is not a virtual company. ServiceTitan's a virtual company.
Yeah.
But Zoom isn't. I'm really the only key player who's not there. A year and a half before, it was just me over franchise and Christina part-time. We didn't have any kind of team. Now there's 14 people on the franchise team and I'm not there. So, and Jim really knows everything I know. Like over the years, he's as smart as me. He's taken everything that I've ever brought to the table and expanded it. So I'm really redundant. And I'm looking at like our EBITDA and do we need me? Do we need someone there? Is there someone with some more skills who could take, I've never grown a company this big. So it was like, founders get in the way.
I say it all the time. That's why you don't see me get involved with my team. People ask me, Lance, what do you do? I'm like, I don't run my companies.
Yeah. I know it's really interesting, but you've grown as an executive to be able to do that.
You have people like, oh, you didn't know he interviewed there? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. What do you mean? And then somebody like, did you know my son worked for you? No, I didn't know that. Hundreds of employees. I can't know everybody. Multiple companies. You asked me today, have you ever been to Salt Lake City? And I was like, yeah, I used to have a company there. One SEO is there.
We have a
company.
And
Bill's like, we have a company there now. You saw it. I was like, oh yeah, we do have a company there.
That was kind of a cool moment. Yeah, and so like I also know like Zoom's always in my heart. And along the way, we've been ServiceTitan franchisees. Jim had Zoom before we got involved with it. We had worked there as consultants, both Al Levy and I, and that's how we fell in love with Jim. And he started to really take off. And, we were proud of him, but when we wanted to franchise, it all came together kind of nicely. But he's been on ServiceTitan, I want to say 9-10 years at Zoom. So we're old school ServiceTitan team members. And I've always been very opinionated and bossy.
Not you.
Yes.
No.
And they
With
know
a smile
it.
on her face, she'll kick you in the ass.
Yeah. But I'm going to make my needs known and try and learn about it. I've been humbled a lot too by not using the software properly, like most of us have. Yeah. But I knew when I left that one of the calls I was going to make, it was the first call, was going to be, is there a place for me at ServiceTitan? So I call, Jackie Obel and Tyson Freeman and Tom Howard, and I'm just about to call Ara. I really think I could be of service here. Because, and this goes into of all the areas of expertise that I have been exposed to, there's one area that I really feel like I've earned my chops, and that's in simple financial systems. Like there's much smarter marketers than me. There's better operational guys than me. I know a little about a lot of things, but as far as imposing really sound financial systems at a company, I'm good. And I knew that if I worked at ServiceTitan, I could preach that in a bigger way. And so when I was looking to come on board, like Angie Snow and Chris Hunter, these guys are part of their, I call them too, they're part of the industry advisor team, work with Tom Howard in this department. And I thought I'd be darling at that. And then I had the opportunity, Brian Olshock, who's one of the senior VPs there, said, how about if you lead the charge on this brand ambassador program? And I'm like, yes, I can. Now, again, just say yes to things that are aligned, because I thought, that does sound interesting. That's something new. I don't know how to do that, but I think I could find out how. I've got great relationships with smart, quirky, interesting, passionate people. What if we formalized all these people who are saying cool things about ServiceTitan and gamified it and created a community for them? It appealed to me right away, and it was just, again, like something even better than I imagined is coming to pass. Again. Just keeps happening in my life.
So the ambassador program, which I'm honored you asked me part of it.
That's right.
You know, and it's funny because I sent you a video yesterday. I think you were on it when the guy, and everybody thinks ServiceTitan. I've never got a referral fee from ServiceTitan. I know they pay them.
You can.
I know, but I don't do it for that. And
Okay.
it's first of all, and I look at it differently, right? I believe in ServiceTitan is the best platform out there. So I don't need a fee for someone to pay me to do it. Make sense?
Thank you for your
it's
service.
the best thing there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to be an ambassador whether I got paid or not, right? But where my relationship with ServiceTitan really came in, and this is what I think separates them, because I've been on a lot of different platforms, and I've reached out to presidents, vice presidents, whoever it may be, and I can't get a call back. Mm-hmm. I reached out to R one time with a phone call and a text, and it's a true story. I talked to him for a half hour on the phone. He told me no. He did tell me no my request.
Okay.
I didn't take it though. I got Cherry Roofing still on the platform. I got it on there. Sold the company.
Okay.
Circled back to R and said, I'm not leaving roofing. And I'm going to go talk to AccuLink's job. Someone's going to believe in me, R. I'm asking you to be you because I've been on these platforms. I believe you're the best. He called me back inside of an hour and said, we'll figure it out, Lance. Let's get it done before.
Yeah. You know, that I want to brag on that.
You just can't talk about a man with, because I know what he's worth. I know what he's built, right? And we all know the pecking order of life. He's up there, I'm down here. And yet he's still, and now he still takes my phone calls, my email, whatever it is, he makes you feel part of that community. And that's why I agreed to it. I love you.
Yeah.
But I was like, this guy is what he says he is.
I 100% feel that. Like there is a statement of values that they have, and it's all about making lives better for the contractors like their dads, and R and Vahe are aligned, and those values trickle down every day. And now that I'm in ServiceTitan, I haven't seen a moment where we aren't driven by those values. So like, I love this company. Are there problems with the software? Sure. Are they? But there's always, there's going to be 100 things wrong with it on the day they, whatever. But like, that's just how business is. There's always a problem, but they lean into problems. They prioritize relationships. And I do feel like the best of what I have to offer is honored, recognized, and respected at ServiceTitan. I'm happy to be here. And this is a ServiceTitan sponsored podcast.
It is.
Yeah.
And know what's funny about that is, I called R up. There was two companies that have been great to me technology-wise that have always gone out of their way. ServiceTitan and Marilla, Sebastian. You're good friends with.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting to be. He's a character.
I'm very good
I
friends.
loved you, Sebastian.
He's a character. But I called those two people up. They were the only two people I would let sponsor the podcast. I actually asked the third one who I have a very good relationship. And I'll put it right out there, Beacon, who I have a very good relationship with. But they want to control my content. And I said, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. Like, why would you want to control? I got it. If Beacon is doing something that's not 100% accurate, you got to be able to talk about it. No, then you said, like, hey, listen, ServiceTitan has, but the good outweighs the bad. 90% is good, there's 10% bad. Like, that's just is what it is.
Yeah.
But Rilla and ServiceTitan were the only two I let sponsor my podcast because I knew they both core values match mine.
Yeah.
And Beacon was another one I asked, but they just wanted to control my content.
Well, and
that
you
was
get
off
bigger,
the table.
It gets riskier. I get all that too. And it is fun now in the position that I am at ServiceTitan. Nobody reports to me. That's been a while and it's great. So it's fun to be a supportive team player, but I'm also kind of a troublemaker, which I think they appreciate.
The ambassador program, talk to people about what it is and what you're trying to achieve out of it.
Yeah, well, ultimately, what Red Bull is to extreme sports, ServiceTitan can be to the trades. And I love tradespeople so much. Like, there's so much, there's so many cool things about what tradespeople do. And just like what I love about my husband, in times of trouble and need, who goes in when everyone else is running the other way? The electricians, the roofers, the contractors, the plumbers, the drain cleaners. These guys go in. And we saw it during the pandemic. Everybody goes to work. They got to keep people safe and powered and free of disease. And I just love tradespeople so much. And I think that while extreme sports are really sexy and engaging, if people knew what tradespeople do every day, not just the technicians, but also the people who support the technicians.
There's so much to it.
There's so much to it, and it's so sexy and it's so great. And I am looking for women and some diversity and some
Let's talk
new
about
faces.
I want to talk about that. Clearly, you see my leadership has always been CJ was the CEO of one SEO, female. Jolene's my CFO. I have Kelly, my VP of operations. My head of HR is a female. Like, why do you think so many companies don't hire women in key positions? Because you walk around, I mean, everywhere I'll just say, I think women are stronger than men. I do in business. I really do. I think women aren't as emotional. I think women are 10 times more loyal. I think a woman can cry and get her ass kicked.
Oh, yeah.
And come back the next day and not like that ass kicking, but not thinking about, I'm going to go find a new job today. Where a man, because of his ego, gets his ass kicked, he quits. Or when a man hears no to his ideal, he becomes a little, I won't even say female, because females are stronger. Their ego go. I've worked with women now in so many leadership roles, and they've always delivered more than any man, besides probably Bill Rizzo. And I always tell Bill Rizzo, he has a little woman in him.
Well, I think we all have a little man, a little woman in us, perhaps.
But why do you think women outperform men, but people won't give them shots? It's mind-boggling to me.
And your company is an anomaly. It's not like that everywhere. And I think, like, let me just talk from my own experience, strength, and hope.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, there were several situations. Like one job, I had a million jobs. One of them was I was on ski patrol. There were 2 women and 250 men. And I felt very supported in that role. Now, it was a risky role to be in, because like, okay, it's on you. Let's see if we can bring more women in here. But I also felt that I was interesting. The 2 of us were interesting because they're the women on the team and they didn't want us to fail. So I think I've had some advantage to being like the only woman in a man's world a couple of times. But I also think I put up with a lot of shit, a lot of sexism, a lot of words and actions that were just inappropriate and
Do you believe that still goes on today?
I know it goes on today.
Today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I get 20, 30 years ago. You believe it goes on today?
100% it goes on today. And if it's not women, it's people who are different, just in any way, shape, or form. Let's say gender is more fluid, or at least we're aware of it now. I think that as soon as you're different, I think that people respond to being different with fear, and that can come out in some nasty ways. But I think what I feel now is I feel like more of a champion. My son thinks I overstep sometimes, but if I hear anything that sounds disrespectful or inappropriate, I'll like go put myself right in that situation. Whereas like years before I would have said, just put your head down, sister, and go. Do you see what I mean? Do you see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
So I feel a lot more compelled. And you know who's really a champion and has given me a lot of inspiration is Catherine Pollock.
Yes.
Is a beast.
She is.
Go girl. But she's given me a lot of inspiration in terms
But she
of
has a
being
hell of a
so
life story.
proactive. A hell of a life story, and has overcome so much. And I think she's just getting started.
I'm one of her favorite. She's one of my favorite.
Me too. Me too. And so as she's developing, I've got like a squad of women in the industry now where we're supporting each other, where before I didn't feel as obligated as I do now to help the next person up. So I think just diversity in general. You still go to the conferences. Pantheon's pretty diverse, which is pretty exciting, but most of the other conferences that you go to, you're going to see a lot of white guys. You know, it's getting better.
It's funny you say that because, I bought the roofing conference process. I bought it and from Dimitri, and, one of the first speakers I thought of, I never met this woman yet, is a woman named Heather Hitchcock, but somehow we became friends on social media.
I want to write the name down.
Yeah, you got to look her up, okay, Heather Hitchcock, right? She's always talking about roofing. She's always there, and I'm all in on roofing. That's where I'm going, right? I want to change the industry. And I was like, this is a woman I need to speak at my conference. But I never met her. Never legit met her. And I reached out to her on social media. I'm like, have you ever spoke or done anything? And she probably had no clue who I was. And she was like, not really. I'm like, well, listen, I was like, I see the size of your company. It's about, I'm going to assume somewhere between 5 and 10 million. I could just evaluate offline. And I'm like, am I right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, in roofing for a female-owned business, like, come on, man. She's legit. She's the Michael Jordan of females in roofing, like, right? I'm like, would you mind coming and speak at the conference? And she's like, what? So we get on the call, and I know she had to be like, what is this guy doing? But, like, we need more of that. Like, people going and finding the women out there that.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit and say like I'm pro champion women or I'm kind of the best person gets the job. But there's more than enough qualified women out there that are better than the men, and people just aren't giving them a chance. And I do believe that, and that's what I think is lunacy.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting evolutions. I went to see Carrie Kelsch's place. A plus garages. I can't help the names.
Oh yeah, she's a beast.
Garage, a beast. And her company has a traditionally tasteful flair. It looks like a woman-owned company. There are just some niceties that are happening in her shop that I don't see in a lot of shops, and I'm like, wow, that's something that she's bringing that's just unique to her personality that she's expressing through her shop. It is so tasteful, it's so beautiful, and it's so functional, and she's a sales and profits machine.
Have you ever gotten to know Amanda Troll yet?
Oh my gosh, I love her. Love her.
Like
We were at, it was.
I've gotten to meet her a few times now. I like her a lot.
Did you see when she was on stage and she called out to her team and said, and our values are, and the whole team shouts out their values one at a time, like boom, 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 just been drilled at that company, part of the culture. I thought, I will love her forever for that one moment.
Yeah,
she's a beast.
Here's a question for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you're a queen of financial literacy, in my opinion.
Well, I am a queen.
You are a queen of financial
literacy. I am a queen.
You are. You know it inside out. And you came here to our office before you met with Bill, but this is like the first time I really got to spend a lot of time with you.
Yeah.
And, I've liked you from the moment. I don't think you're the type of person that people can't like.
Well,
right?
I saw you on stage at Vertical Track, and I was like going, I want to talk. I'm going to his shop. I got to find him. So, yeah.
And make a long story short, you walk in and you see I just have P&Ls there. It was actually for my IT company and my Titan Pro company. It wasn't even for anybody. And I was working on that today. And you asked me how I managed. I just started showing you my P&Ls. Mm-hmm. But I literally just handed it to you.
Yeah.
And when we got into the conversation of most people won't do that, and you're like, no, they won't. And you have your belief and that more people are just insecure about showing the numbers.
I think there's a lot of reasons.
And give them to me.
And a lot of them are emotional. I think some of them is they don't know. They don't know what they're looking at. They feel stupid. It's like being in a room of Spanish speakers and you don't speak Spanish. You're not stupid, but you feel stupid because you don't speak the language. And I don't know that they've ever learned. Business owners of even some big companies operate out of the checkbook because they've really never learned what the balance sheet and the profit and loss are, what they tell you, how to keep track of the numbers, what those metrics are. So I think there's a lot of insecurity, some ignorance, some fear. Some daddy told me never to share financial information. That's how I grew up. It was not talked about. You're not supposed to tell people how much you make, all of that. I think it is more exposing to look at someone's financials than anything else, because if it's important to you, you're spending money on it. Does that make sense? So like if you looked in someone's checkbook, they can say they're a generous supporter of the community, but there should be then something in the checkbook that demonstrates that, or not, but like the truth of a character is revealed in how they spend their money. So like there's a lot of emotional stuff that can go into it.
I'll agree with you to a certain extent. I do. The only part I agree with you on really is people don't know, which I run into people every day. They don't know what a balance sheet is. They don't know what net income is. They don't know how to get GP. I understand there's multiple ways you can get to a GP number. We ran through the exercise. I mean, you were very...
What you're calling cost of goods sold.
Yeah, we're very close on what we put into a GP, me and you. I think most people are that operate at a high level are going to be... It's going to be dependent on what your accountant says.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say there's a lot of diversity there.
Yeah. So my... thing is, I believe the number one reason why people are so afraid to show a P&L is because they're full of shit. and people are like, Lance, that's pretty brutal. I'm like, well, it's kind of like this, right? I've interviewed tons of people in my life, and I say, what do you need to make? And I'll be like, I need to make $150,000. Okay, what did you make last year? 90,000. Well, why do you need to make 150? You only made 90 last year. Where's the $60,000 gap?
Yeah.
You want to make 150. You don't need to make it. People will tell you, I'm doing 10 million. All these gurus on social media, which you see, I'm making this money. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. But then they're leveraged. They have all this debt. The P&L you can't hide from, right? When a guy says, you see my numbers are right out here on the board.
Yeah.
We're at $18 million at months, year-to-date roofing, right? It's up there right in ServiceTitan. You just see it, right? You can't lie about that. Like, it's in ServiceTitan. The number's there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's now, on a P&L, it's the same thing. Can people misclass things?
Yeah.
Can they make mistakes?
Yeah.
Yes. But it's my job to find them and find the outliers that don't run at the same percentage month after month. If we're not getting better, we're getting worse. There's no in between, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I think people don't want to master the P&L. And do you believe you can build a great, profitable company without mastering it?
No, and in fact,
that's what I'm coming down.
Yeah, this is what's so cool about it is knowing this. And I'm going to tie this back to like women in the industry again. And I feel like
she's a champion for the women. I like it. Though.
I am, but I feel
it.
like I have to go like rescue my son as my best friend and the best person on the planet, I think. My aunt and I always look at him like, how do you get the best of all of us and none of the worst of it? He's the best. But, as I said, he sometimes I will like try and make a life lesson when we go to McDonald's or the barista, and he's like, Mom, don't, just not today. But I always do. I always try and like make these learning moments, but not that he would ever get in the way of doing the right thing, just the opposite. Anyway, to clean this up and go back to the financials, and so often women in our industry are in the money, like your sister, Jolene, right? That was her position. And she had the opportunity to be a pencil pusher or to grow and learn the financials. You just told me the story today. Without a doubt. So there is an into our industry. If you are in a position where you're doing the bookkeeping, here is my hearty recommendation. Figure out how ServiceTitan runs, every system that you use in it, demystify it, and the same with your accounting program. I'm a big fan of this touchless integration, especially for smaller companies just starting up. For sure, it's the better way to go. But to think of your CRM and your accounting system as one system and learn it, because that's what people are buying, is a system that consistently generates profit. So what is EBITDA? What is the importance of it? Is that someone will buy your company for profit that you haven't even made yet. It's a times EBITDA because they're thinking in 5 years they'll get their money back at a 5 times EBITDA, right? They're banking on that money being there because there's systems in place. There's good enough systems that a good enough leader could do great things with this business, and even without the owner be able to generate that cash. That is the game. So if there's any way you get invited to that big table to look at the numbers, any way you get asked to work in the accounting, say yes to that, because one, it's not that hard. It is not that hard to figure it out. It's just getting the language down. That's why I wrote the little skinny books with the glossary in them. Like, learn that, because that's the position of power.
It's funny because I did tell you the story about my sister.
It's so excited about.
And I want to tell all you guys the story about my sister because most people don't know this. I was telling Ellen, me and my sister went through a really tough time with one SEO. We're probably 6-7 years in, and I'll be very transparent. I didn't know P&L reading that well. I didn't understand the balance sheet. Very transparent.
We didn't learn this in school.
No, well, that's why I hate school. No offense. I don't believe in school, and I think it's for fools. And I
don't agree with any of that, but
I do. I think you can learn more sitting with Ellen Rohr for a day than you probably ever will through a full year of school.
As a highly educated person, but go on. Okay.
So that's just me.
Yeah.
But to make a long story short, I knew I had to transform myself into a business person. I was a hustler, selling, hustler, selling. Built a great organization at One SEO, great digital marketing company, making money, but wasn't getting the growth I want. I had to start understanding the numbers. I'm watching enough people around me. And Jolene was great at bookkeeping, making sure we never missed a bill, but the P&L wasn't right. And Karen, who I give credit for because she changed my life when it came to financials, she worked for Mark Zimman, who was my accounting firm, who I would have left, honestly, if it wasn't for it. Now, me and Mark have a great relationship 12 years
But
later.
she was significant.
She was significant in my education of the P&L. I mean, Jolene, like you and your husband, you know, I'm going here now. And Jolene was saying she was going here with me, but she just wasn't doing it, wasn't learning it, right? And I remember Karen came and met with me and Jolene. And Karen sat across from Jolene and said, Jolene, you have two options. You want to be the CFO, you want that title, you want the power, you help found at this company with your brother. Your brother's going here, and I'm telling you, no one's going to stop him, not even you. So you got to decide, are you going to learn this and master this and do whatever it takes and pull your big girl panties up and do this job, or he's going to fucking replace you. And like, it was right here at my conference table, and Jolene was crying, and I felt bad for her at the time, but I knew I had a decision to make to go where I want to go. And you understand this.
Yeah.
You got to want to come on this journey with me because I can't force you.
Yeah.
She waited 2 days. She came back. She said, I'm all in. I promise you I'll learn inside out. And we've scaled and jumped because now she masters it. If she doesn't know it, she goes, finds the fucking answer. And like, I've never seen a relentless woman when it comes to being, and we hired a CFO. I don't know if I told you the story that really got this. Because when I sold my third company, everyone around me, people in my network kept saying, you need to bring in a CFO that has all the markers. Private equity is going to want them. And I brought a CFO in from Vanguard who was the worst thing that ever happened to me. He was not a doer. Yeah. He was a bullshit artist. These people say I bring 10x enterprise value, 10x this. No, small business, you got to jump in, get it done, figure it out, make the changes, put the systems, processes in. And this guy almost literally upside down my company. It was actually a year and a half ago. Because Jolene didn't want to be the CFO anymore. Yeah. She was just like, I want to go be a CEO. I want to go run. She kind of want to add the financial part of the business, which you said is the person that runs the financials runs the company. There's so much power there. But to your credit, do you want to finish? I put her right back in. I fired him. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even let me fire him. There's the one person in my career I truly wanted to fire because he messed everything up so bad. And he was so arrogant and so rude to people and thought he was above people. I wanted to fire him. Yeah. I wanted to be the one to be like, you're out of here. And somebody else did? They wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me. Afraid you were going to punch him. They probably. But they wouldn't let me. And I said to Jolene, you'll be my CFO to the end of time. Yeah. That's it. We're done. Well, let's talk about some of the, because I've had some terrible CFO experiences and been talked down to and don't worry your pretty little head about it and all that stuff. And then I've met some really great ones. And the great ones are willing to do bookkeeping tasks. And I don't mean like on the daily, but they're not intimidated by a journal entry. They understand the flow of information. They'll drill down and they'll follow the flow, like from when the technician enters something, how does it get all the way to the accounting program? Like you have to, that's what I mean about like, Absolutely. That's why I'm like, oh, they might be right. But you look under the hood and there's always mistakes. Sometimes they're little and negligible. It's human. And because there's so much process, like the data starts with the call taker, the dispatcher, and the technician, plus whoever's in the warehouse. The material loop has a lot of touch points, so there's going to be these moments where it gets out of whack, but a really great CFO is willing to ask, and have people open up those segments. Like, how does it go from here to here? How do we know this is right? Who set up the business units in the first place? What do job categories do? Like, you have to demystify that flow of content, and the very best CFOs are willing to do that with the accounting team. And that's a beautiful thing. When you see that happening at a company, the company's going to be all right. If you had to recommend one thing to roofers out there, right? Because I really do believe that roofers is what HVAC was 30 years ago. I do too. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some great roofing companies out there, some great roofing people. If you had to give them one piece of advice about their financials, what would you give them? So I believe it all starts and ends there for me. Yeah, I mean, for any company at all, I think we're in agreement. You got to know the basics. And it's not just the P&L, it's assets, liabilities, equity. You got to pay attention. The three big KPIs are always sales, profits, and cash. You got to have sales. So like when you're talking about being a hustler
we were talking earlier off camera about like, how do you stand up a company? One thing I'm noticing is, and this is messy, but to get a company stood up, focus on sales, even if they're crappy sales, even if they're a mess, get
Correct.
enough coming in, then focus on some systems, and the big expenses are going to be labor, material, subs, marketing. Pay attention to those big rock expenses, get some systems stood up, and get yourself some profit, get plenty of profit. So raise your prices so you have plenty of profit and take it in cash, and then use cash to manage your debt. Like, there's not that many moving parts to this.
Yeah.
So sales, profits, and cash are the biggies. Like, everybody has to know that. But if I were in roofing, and one of the things I like about drain cleaning and restoration, et cetera, is HVAC. I'm going to be really stereotypical now. HVAC, I would put HVAC systems, operations, marketing. I would put those good operators. They're the best in the world.
I agree with you on that.
Best in the world. And then maybe some plumbing companies, and then maybe some restoration companies, and then electricians, and then roofing and drain cleaning. So the good news is, like, the competition's so bad in these industries that you could crush it. So, like, you find yourself in a position right now where you can be the king of roofing in ServiceTitan. ServiceTitan is excited to work with you to help understand the roofing industry. It's because you've got some rarefied air here.
I feel like, and I say this to people, I feel like I was like when they came to America and they found the land and they just started putting, boom. Because this is the funnest I'm ever having.
I know.
It's been the easiest it's ever been for me. I mean, think about this. I think we've acquired 11 companies, nine or 11 companies in the last year. We rolled up 2 of them. I mean, I said to you, how many people you know have rolled up 2 different companies in a year?
When you say roll up, you mean
I
consolidated
consolidated them.
Okay, so put 2 together?
I put 3 together one time. I put 4 together one time. And you know how hard that is.
Well, I know, looking at it.
You know what I mean? And, you know, but I'm actually doing it in the space. And because I think people understand the space is going to change fast, money's going there. Yeah. And they're right on the cusp, these people. It's just dialing in a few things, and it's life-changing for them. You know, when someone gets a $5, $10, $15 million, $20 million check at one time, it's life-changing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's life-changing.
And, okay, so here's another thing that, oh, gosh, there's so much to talk about. But let's talk about roofing. And one of the things I like about drain cleaning, I love drain cleaning, is it's not weather-dependent. It's not economy-driven. Like, how bad does it have to be before you call it drain cleaner? Like, you know, it's so good. And roofing, again, the competition is so doable. Like, you can just go do it. So in both those areas, you know, when something like the economy hits and the competition is not as sophisticated as you are, or resilient, or deep-pocketed, it's a really good time to buy companies.
It is.
And that applies to anybody. I mean, that applies to the HVAC guys who are paying attention. And most of my experience with buying companies are not EBITDA deals, although I have a handful of those, you know, under my belt too. But most of them are napkin deals.
Absolutely. Handshakes. Do you trust me? Do I trust you?
Percentage of sales moving forward. We'll set up a phone number in Marketing Pro to track sales on your phone number. Like, there's easy ways to. So someone would rather say, again, the emotional part of it, they'd rather say they sold their company than they shut it down. And you can really have a win-win situation there. Something I learned from John Young is that, and I know you operate like this, is that you don't have to make the best deal. You have to make a good deal for you and them.
You know, it's funny because I said this to you point blank. My deal flow has changed in the last year. I don't even buy any. I won't even put money into companies anymore. They got to bring the cash and no debt. And people are like, you get 50% of the company. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what's my time worth? What's my 30 years of experience worth? I don't have to be here. I don't have to do this. I want to do this.
And they don't have to say yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're like I told you, I'm looking for the right people that want to almost say, you know what? Let's go build something great. We have the playbook. We understand it. We've been there. We've done it now multiple times. Let's go do it. I think, like you said, a lot of people feel like they have to pay for companies, and you really don't.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the way to exit is to be building so that you have an EBITDA deal. You've got a big multiplier. I mean, that's another way to play. And your company could be worth a lot if you're paying attention to the money, if you put the systems in. But for many people, they're aging out, their knees hurt, their backs hurt, their kids see it as a ball and chain. They don't want anything to do with it. So there's a lot of ways out there to help transition.
Or you're better off rolling up 3 or 4 together.
I'm really intrigued by this idea. Now, this is Any Hours doing some really interesting things.
So for me, what I did just in Pittsburgh, there was 3 great companies. One was doing about 7-8 million. One was doing about 3 to 4. The other one was doing 2 to 3. And I just said, listen, guys, they all wanted to partner with me. And I said, guys, listen, you're all in Pittsburgh. Think about this. 1 CSR can handle you, maybe 2. But right now you have 3 or 4 among the 3 of you. You have different accounting firms for all you. Think about this, right? Mm-hmm. You have different project managers for all you. All different systems. 3 different advertising campaigns. If you guys all come together, we can literally unify you. The money goes that much further. You know that.
Yeah.
You have a bigger sales force. And is your now percentage in the smaller company, because nobody will buy you today. You don't hit the metrics. You don't have enough EBITDA for anyone to buy you. Immediately, you just became an enterprise company where somebody will buy you.
And then
after about 12 to 18 months of doing all the integration, sales, getting everything set up, same brand, same everything, same. I don't have to tell you what you have to go through.
Well, let me ask you some questions and I don't know these guys, so I'm not busting any anonymity here. Yeah. But what do you do with 3 entrepreneurs and who's going to be in charge and just managing?
Like I tell everybody, so what we did was, out here, a perfect example was, because we did it already at Munns.
Okay.
We picked one person that we thought. And it's never personal, right? Like this is what I tell people. I have no dog in this fight, except for to get you your dream to sell this company. Everyone that partners with me, the only reason they partner with me is to sell to a private equity firm. I have great relationships with them. As you know, I've done it multiple times. I've done it in multiple verticals. Most people normally stick to one. I've done it now multiple and different ones. I understand the process. So what I say is, listen, it's never personal. We picked a kid, this kid Nate, for out in Pittsburgh. Good looking, young. He's the guy that's going to run through the wall and lead and be coachable. The other ones were all great salespeople.
Okay.
He was probably the worst salesperson of the 4. Like, because there's 4 owners total, but 3 companies. Your best sales leader is not always your best sales guy.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a great salesperson to understand that. We felt this guy would be best administratively, because being a sales leader, you have to have a lot of administrative capability, understanding the reports, getting the reports, following up on misinformation, explaining things, rolling out new things. Your greatest salespeople normally can't do these things.
Yeah.
Or they have to want to change to do them.
Yep.
That's why we took.
What's the bigger why there? What is that Wayne Dyer says? Would you rather be right or be rich? Would you rather be right or be kind? Like, there's some choices in being right. Keith Mercurio did that amazing presentation at Pantheon last year. The cost of being right. Like, it is a burden to be right. But if there's other motivators and you can discover those, then you may be able to get people on the same page.
I use this line all the time. I'd rather win and be wrong than be right and lose.
There you go.
And so for me, winning's everything. I have it tattooed on my arm here.
What does it say?
Winner.
Winner.
I have loser over here just to remind me there's 2 choices. No, I really do.
I see it.
You're a winner or a loser in life. And I see people argue, and they rather lose.
Because they're right.
Because they're right. Yeah. And I'd rather win. I'm going to give you a perfect example, right? I have a game this weekend for my son's football game, right? And our offensive coordinator, I help him out, and I help coach it, right? And he's not going to be here. So this is going to be the first game I have to coach by myself, right? For offensive coordinator, head coach Bill and me are very good friends, great guy. I said, know what? I met this guy, Colin, that all these guys know, that he was almost their mentor. So I got friendly with this guy over the last year. So I called him up. I said, Colin, hey, listen, this is my first time coaching on my own, calling plays without somebody. I want to win. I said, do you mind coming out to Thursday night's practice with me? And then you have all your certs. Do you mind coming out Saturday and calling the game with me? And he was like, yeah, I'll do it. But not many people would do that and check their own ego. I'd rather win's more important than my own ego.
Yeah.
And that's where people, I think, can't check their own ego.
Yeah.
They'd rather lose but be the man instead of
Yeah.
win and not be the man.
And I think that winning too, like how much is enough? Tommy Mello and Keith Mercurio did a podcast the other day. I mean, two rich guys talking about life, but really interesting that at some point it isn't the money anymore. It is the relationships. It is, at what price are you going to balance these things out? At some point, like, I have a number in mind that I haven't yet hit. Like you said, what still drives me? I like the game. I like talking to people. I like learning. People retire. They talk about their knees and their health and forget about it. So I don't think I'm going to retire. But I do love the game. I like playing and I like being in on it. I don't like doing things on my own. Like my husband is absolutely someone who he's just going to start, change, stop his own gig. But it just doesn't appeal to me. I like the team mentality and the challenge and all of that energy. So let me ask this about roofing though.
Yes.
Because roofing, if it pours rain, does everybody have to go home? How do you mitigate the weather in roofing?
we schedule, and I had to change their mindsets here. No one's worse. No one's wrong more. Well, that's not true. The only people wrong more than the weatherman is politicians on both sides.
Okay.
Right? So they're just terrible.
So weather is
a non-factor for us. We go until we see it's raining or snowing. So we're going. Like we're scheduling. Hey, 90% chance of rain on Saturday. We're booking jobs.
Might not be raining on this house.
It might not be raining there. So we go, right?
Okay.
And then we say to our roofers, have common sense. If it looks like it's coming in an hour or two, don't do it.
Right.
Before you can get there, do it. We've never had one issue yet.
That's interesting. I was wondering if you mitigate it by doing other trades.
No. So we're doing all roofing and siding.
Okay. Roofing and siding. It's still
as
outside.
you know, I've owned HVAC companies. I've sold HVAC companies. I do own technology companies. Obviously, I'm a technology guy. But I can't say never right now. Deal flow, as I told you, everybody comes to me. I don't have a merger and acquisition team. I got enough business that I own already. Mm-hmm. Everybody comes to me, right? So I look at it this way. I'm not going to go into another trade right now when it's so good in roofing and I'm only in roofing 2.5 years.
Yeah. I feel like that about drains. And drains usually are part of plumbing, but plumbing, 50,000 parts. You get the faucet that crooked. There's too much caulk. You own that. We got callback. All I got to do, I never do anything. Thank you, team. But the drain cleaners have to leave the area clean and the drains flowing. It's so much easier. Our game plan is just do more of that.
Roofing's simple.
Yeah.
Shingle, because we don't do really flat roofs too much. We don't do no commercial work.
Flat roofs are trickier.
It's just shingles. We do no cedar. We do no all this. We're just a straight shingle roof, right? So we have shingle, tar paper, plywood, siding, some windows and doors. I think
soffit and face.
Yeah, but it's the windows and doors part of our business is about 3 to 5% of our business every single month. Everything else, roofing is about 60%, about 60 to 70% every month. Siding's the other part of it. So it's really 12 to 20 things on roofing, and then siding gets a little bit more complicated, but still not a
Keeping
ton.
it simple.
Keep it simple, and I believe in that. Keep it simple, silly. You know what I mean? Keep it KISS, right? Keep it simple, silly, or keep it simple, stupid, whatever you want to call it, right?
Sweetheart.
Yes. No.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sweetheart, right? So that's why, and I think people overcomplicate everything. And I'm glad I don't know any of these trades. I've never sold a roof, never sold HVAC, never sold painting. I've never even been on a sales call, or I've never even done the work. So I have no bias to anything. It's just keep it simple. We're overcomplicating this.
I think that's such good advice. And it does make sense. If you're in a really small town, so you're in Rogersville, Missouri, there just might not be enough population to be a specialist. But if you've got 100,000 people in your market area, you could own that. What did I hear? 10,000 people could be a $5 million company
all day long, twice on Sunday.
Yeah. So just go get that work. Become the mayor. Become the king or queen of that market area. Very
Last
exciting.
question for you before you go. What's next for Ellen?
Well, I'm excited to stand up this brand ambassador program. And my life's work now is I'm very excited to be in a position where on topic today, I can talk about the money, how to set it up, how to simplify it. I'm going to be speaking at Pantheon on how to simplify your setup and your cleanup of ServiceTitan in your accounting program. I'm going to be at Home Service Freedom talking about the same thing, these basic patterns, one-page reports, getting your team in on the game, expanding financial literacy all over the place. That's really my work. And then I am fun. I like to visit. I'll be learning from all different people. And this brand ambassador program is going to give me a chance to have an even higher profile and give a microphone to interesting cats like you.
I can tell you the ServiceTitan is lucky to have you. I mean,
I feel the same way. I feel like I'm in an absolutely great spot, and we're going to make some really cool things happen.
Thank you for always being so good to me. I appreciate you.
Hey, we're just
Thank you
getting
for coming.
started.
No doubt.
Yay.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, ServiceTitan and Rilla, our technology of choice to helping us scale and grow our business and making sure all of our viewers have the technology to scale their business so when they want to sell it, they're able to.